And we're live from Starfleet headquarters. It's Starfleet Boy. This is I think we've established that we do pre-record some episodes, so this has been a marathon session for the Doctor and I.
3 episodes in a row, right?
3 in a row, and you can tell because I'm wearing the same outfit.
I actually showered.
Oh, good. Good
Much
for
more
you.
presentable than I was the first time.
I am having a drink called Starfleet headquarters. That's why it's red.
I am having I'm having water.
Very nice. Good for you. Stay hydrated.
Mm-hmm.
I do drink on another show called Drunk Space Nine, but I do want to point out that before Drunk Space Nine existed, I drank alcohol on The Naked Now so that I could feel like the characters did in the episode. And I just realized
That's right.
So I
wasn't there, but I heard.
So Starfleet Boy has been drinking since episode 2 of Starfleet Boy, so it's nothing new. I have to get my notes.
All right, sir.
I do take notes, guys. All right.
I do not. I went.
You're good at that. You're really good at that, Wesley. I'm not as good at that. I have to have a few notes. Just a few, not too many.
Well, I have notes in the form of the Star Trek Next Generation Companion.
Doctor, could I implore you to, since we just watched this episode, could I implore you to take a crack at the episode summary?
Certainly. The Enterprise arrives in orbit around a rather green planet, and it is the site of a race of arms dealers that disappeared. According to the computer, there's no life. There's no intelligent life on this planet at all. There was a previous ship, the Drake, and they don't know what happened to the Drake, so they're investigating what happened. Am I getting this right?
You're totally on track.
Okay, let me know if I get something wrong.
Well done, Geordi. Continue with your command of the ship.
And an away team beams down that includes initially Riker, Tasha, and Data. It eventually includes Captain Picard himself and Dr. Crusher.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're on the planet dealing with the weapon to end all weapons,
the Arsenal of Freedom, as it were.
The Arsenal of Freedom, as they call it. The Enterprise itself is dealing with a weapon in space that is attacking the ship, and Geordi is left in command.
Mm-hmm.
And it is up to Geordi to deal with that intergalactic menace up there.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. Sorry, I had to throw that in.
So eventually, Picard and company convince the planet's computer, or rather the computer that runs the weapon, that yes, they're going to buy the weapon. They have a sale, so they can stop demonstrating the deadly potential of the weapon. So the away team is free to go. Oh, but while they were on the planet, Crusher was seriously injured.
Right.
That's a major point. So there was some bonding going on between Picard and Crusher, while Riker, Tasha, and Data were running away from the floating weapon, and Geordi gets some bonding time with Chief Engineer Logan.
Who the fuck is that?
Who the fuck is Chief Engineer Logan? And what was his problem? What was his speech impediment?
I I think he didn't have a speech impediment so much as he sounded robotic. In fact, I thought he was a hologram from the alien from the. By the way, they're called the Echo Papas. Those things. I thought he was an Echo Papa hologram.
What was wrong with the way he spoke? It was.
I think he was like a character from like the 1940s that was somehow, transplanted into the 24th century. Is it 24th century or are we in the 23rd century?
24th century.
Okay.
Yeah. That Chief Engineer Logan really took me out of the whole episode.
I was
enjoying the shit out of this episode until Engineer Logan showed up.
And I don't think he ever appears again, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think so. I was actually going to consult a book, but
I just don't remember. I didn't remember Chief Engineer Logan from before, and I didn't. What happened to Chief Engineer Argyle, and what happened to the lady? I forgot her name.
Wait, did Argyle die?
I forgot Argyle's death. That's terrible.
Argyle died, right?
In Star Trek. In Star Trek: The Next Generation, there's no more you can't count on a red shirt dying anymore. It's an equal opportunity death. So yellow shirts and green and blue shirts die as well in Star Trek: The Next Generation. So what happens? What's the resolution of the episode?
Oh, the resolution of the episodes is the away team beam back aboard the Enterprise D, and Picard tells Geordi, "I need my ship put back together," because he's separated.
He's separated. Yeah, there's saucer separation.
Very exciting. Yeah,
that was a pretty good summary. I just want to add that the way that they figure it out is the whole thing is a sales pitch, and so once they buy the weapons, the demonstration stops. But I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
The demonstration stopped on the planet for Riker and Tasha, but not up above. Right. So what was that all about? I think that
they must have
re-edited.
That, I thought to myself, maybe that was just a completely different system.
It could be. That could be planetary defense. You're right. That's
right.
Possible.
I mean, that's what I'm assuming, because you're right. It doesn't make sense that they made the sale and yet they're.
It should have disappeared, just like the one for Riker and Troy, Tasha did. I maybe have had a little too much to drink. It's possible.
So let's get into it. What do you think of this episode?
I liked it, but it's not going to be a 4.9. I could tell you.
Really? Not a 4.9?
No, I can tell you right now. In fact, if you want to go right into the ratings to start off with, I give this episode a solid 2.5 stars.
Wow! I enjoyed this episode more than you did.
What did you give it? What's your rating?
I would give this episode a solid 3.
Oh, see, well, it's only a half a thing more.
I love this episode. I enjoy it because, again, it's an episode that has it keeps you moving along pretty well. There's challenges to the A and B plot. The B plot being Geordi up there and the away team down on the planet. You've got the tension built by these weapons that happen every 12 minutes.
Right. It's something like that.
Yeah, so they've got 12 minutes to react to the newest upgrade, Windows 10.
There wasn't really a sense of tension though. Okay, so I'm going to reference another show. Remember the Battlestar episode where like every 66 minutes the fucking Cylons would find the fleet?
Yes. Oh, wow.
So that was really good. It was like So in this episode, the 12 minutes is kind of like, it's interesting, but it's not as effectively done. Like, it would have been neat if there was like a way to count down. You know, like they could have built the tension a little more, I thought.
Well, I guess
66 minutes. Those freaking toasters, they're coming.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And but anyways, you're right though. That was a cool thing. Go on.
I like the weapons. I like the little zingy things. I thought that was cool. I love the actor, Vincent Chiavelli, I think is his name. That guy is one of my favorite actors. The guy
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Batman Returns.
Returns.
What else has he been in?
Tomorrow Never Dies. He's the really bizarre hitman.
He's always a little weird, huh?
He's always a little odd. He's one of my favorite guest stars. He was one of those guys who would just show up, and you never knew when he was going to show up. But when he did, it was always really interesting, and he was very odd.
And then in this episode, he plays, of course, a crazy artificially intelligent sales computer.
Yeah.
If you think your salespeople that call you on the phone are aggressive, you haven't dealt with Vincent. What's his last name?
Is it Chiavelli? Chevelle?
Schiavelli. I think it's Schiavelli. Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, Vincent Schiavelli's crazy psycho computer salesman beats any artificial intelligent crazy psycho computer salesman beats anything. By the way, can I tell you, I got a call on. I have a landline. That's right.
As do I.
That's a landline. Right? It's not a real landline because it's connected to the Wi-Fi or the internet somehow.
Uh-huh.
But the only kind of calls I get on that line are telemarketers. The number used to belong to someone else, so every time I pick up the phone, I know it's going to be a telemarketer. But I don't know why I have it. I have a landline.
It's good to have a landline in case of an emergency.
The problem is that unlike real landlines, this will probably not work in the case of an emergency. So if you have a real landline, don't let them clip the wires. Do not get your wires clipped. Keep your landline. I'll just have to do something else in case of an emergency. I don't know what I'll do, but I'll figure it out.
I still have my landline, so I'm happy with it.
But I get calls, and now telemarketers aren't even people anymore. Did you know this?
Yeah, they're robots.
They're robots, and they're like
they call them robocallers.
Robo what?
Robocallers.
They're robocallers, and it's a real.
But just don't answer them. You can screen them. You have a thing on your phone.
It's called the caller ID. I know. I'm always hopeful that it's a real phone call, though. No, I get excited when my landline rings.
I'll call you there every once in a while if you want.
You do. You do. You're the only person outside of a telemarketer that actually calls me on the landline.
But getting back to the episode, again, it's an episode where everybody has something to do.
Yes.
Actually, just about everybody is in peril. Actually, certainly the away team is in danger. Riker, I like that part where Riker encounters that captain who.
Oh yeah, that was creepy. That was super creepy.
Yeah, and we learned that Riker turned down
the Drake
command to be a first officer on the Enterprise. What did you think about that?
I understand it.
But I thought that was. I did not recall that because I know later on there are episodes where time is devoted to Riker pondering whether or not he's playing it safe by being on the Enterprise, especially in Best of Both Worlds. But I didn't know that so early in Star Trek they had already established that Riker was turning down commands.
I think I had forgotten this, but I also vaguely remember that earlier in the season they also mentioned something about Riker being insistent on taking this this position. Wasn't there something that happened where like Riker was offered a command on another ship earlier in the season? I'm blanking out here. But yeah, you're right. It is interesting that Riker did that, but I also kind of understand it. Like if someone offered me the chance to be the CEO of, like, let's say a small startup computer manufacturer or smartphone manufacturer, and then someone else offered me the chance to be just a vice president for Apple, I would choose being a vice president at Apple. It's kind of like, do you want to serve as a first officer on the Enterprise, or do you want to have your own command on a ship like the Drake that's only capable of warp 3 or 4?
And as we saw, didn't have a very good fate. He made the right choice. He
made the right choice. Yeah, he would have been. I don't know. Maybe Riker being on the Drake would have led to a different outcome. But
maybe that's true. That's true. I mean, they certainly built up that captain for a little bit.
Captain Paul Rice. By the way, I like that we've been seeing in Next Generation, we've seen a lot of other Starfleet officers already. So far, we've seen Admiral. Well, they've been kind of high ranking, but we've seen Admiral Jameson, who had the whole situation with with Karnas.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen Admiral. What was
the last episode?
Yeah, what was his name though?
Not Argyle.
No, but it is another Irish kind of sounding name. And I can't remember. Oh, well, this is what happens when you get old, children. Children, when you get old, you can't remember what you did 10 minutes ago.
For us, it was like a couple hours ago.
For us, it was a couple of hours ago.
I could check the book, but I won't.
Don't worry about it. We don't have to fact check. We're on a marathon here.
Right.
Now we see Captain Paul Rice, and we kind of see like another fate, like kind of like what Riker might have been, and whoever the first officer of the Enterprises may have encountered Riker at that moment.
Tasha has stuff to do in the episode because obviously she's security chief and she's running around firing phasers at this thing. Data has a nice Olympic high jump into that pit where Picard and Crusher are in. Picard and Crusher get some bonding time.
Oh yeah,
which is cool. I'm always down for that. We learned a little bit about Crusher. Last episode we learned a little bit about. We learned a lot about Worf. We learned essentially his origin story. We learned about Data. Now we're learning a little bit about Crusher. I don't
think they ever bring her up again, or maybe they do. But
they do. Remember the that ghost episode?
Is that about her?
Remember?
Oh yeah.
Crusher, women of the line or whatever. Yeah.
I know from the research I did, the little bit of research, that Alveda 3, the planet the colony that's mentioned, I don't think it's mentioned again in Star Trek: The Next Generation, but apparently there was some kind of cataclysm or catastrophe there. Yeah. Dr. Crusher grew up there. Her grandmother's name, Dr. Crusher, by the way, is Beverly Crusher, but her maiden name is Howard, and that leads us to that other Howard.
Yes.
And I think her name's Felicia. Felicia Howard is the grandmother.
Wow. Howard. That's right. It's something with Howard women.
The Howard women have had this entity that's been kind of following them. Yeah, Dr. Crusher has some trippy stories coming up. She's an interesting person.
What did you make of that moment where Picard goes, I suppose there's a lot about you I don't know, Beverly. And she goes, yes, there is.
I think she's sort of confessing in that moment that she has not confessed her feelings for Jean-Luc.
And
it's a tough relationship because this is kind of like a Mulder Scully thing in my mind. You know, like Picard Crusher. It's like you really want them to get together, but then you're like, well, but how can they? You know, and then
Why not?
I don't know. And then there's this whole thing later with the series finale says they got married and then they got divorced, and it's so sad. It's so sad that they had gotten divorced.
I refute that. I don't accept that.
It's canon.
That's a possible future. Our future's not set in stone.
You're right. That's true. But I mean, it looks like Picard's going to have advanced aromatic syndrome no matter what. And I even remember what it was called. It was so traumatic. It was so traumatic to me as a child that I even remember advanced aromatic syndrome.
You weren't that much of a child at that point. 7 years later. How long did your childhood extend?
I feel as though my childhood is still going on.
You're still maturing.
Go on the record. I'm 38 years old, and sometimes I still feel as though my childhood is in progress.
You're 38. How old am I?
40. Are you 41 now? I think.
2.
Oh, you are 42. You're the meaning of life age.
Oh wow, I'm the meaning of life.
That's great.
All right.
Or the answer. Isn't it the answer to what is the meaning of life?
Everything.
Yeah, it's 42. You are the answer to everything. There's at this point.
If this were Drink Space Nine, we would do a toast to the late great Douglas Adams.
Well, you're a teetotaler, so I can do a toast.
Oh, go ahead. Please toast Douglas Adams.
Starfleet boy toast to Douglas Adams.
There we go. Geordi taking command of the Enterprise was interesting, I have to admit. And this is the second time he's taken command.
Well, he's put in charge a lot this season.
Oh, okay. I only remember one other time. This time I thought was very good. I think LeVar Burton did a great job. I think LeVar Burton's role on Next Generation, I don't think I really appreciated it much the first time. Maybe I was just, I saw him as Reading Rainbow guy, and I didn't think much, I just didn't appreciate him as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
But watching the show, through this thing we're doing now, I'm seeing that LeVar Burton was probably radically underused, and his physicality is interesting. When he's relating to that stupid engineer Logan, or to the other the other Helms people.
Solus and Sue, who I don't think we ever saw until this episode. Any of those 3 people were all brand new.
Ensign Sue,
mm-hmm.
The actress, I don't know if you know this, but that actress is quite notable.
Oh.
She was up for the part of Tasha. What? Yes. That actress you may recognize. Do you remember Around the World in 80 Days with Pierce Brosnan?
Yeah.
Do you remember the princess?
Oh, yeah.
She is the princess.
That's cool.
She is also on a later episode of Deep Space Nine.
Wait, which one? You can't remember.
One that she's on. I don't know.
Now I have to look her up.
I like her a lot. She's a very good actress. I like her. She's good. So I don't know if her appearance, if that was like some kind of concession to not getting the part for Yar, or I don't know. But I know she was up for the part of Lieutenant Yar. But I liked Geordi taking command. We got a salsa separation.
I know, and it just made me realize how good the remastering is.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. And we get to see the battle bridge again. That's always a plus.
Ensign Sue is played by Julia Nichols. No, sorry, Nixon, and she's best known for Rambo, Half-Life, Double Dragon, and Sidekicks. Known for.
Yes, she's in that movie Sidekicks. And yeah, she is in Rambo. That's right. She is. Doesn't mention Around the World in 80 Days?
It doesn't, but I'm sure it's on there. And let's just check. Let's just make sure.
I have the DVD right here. I can check.
Yeah, you could check and see if Julia Nixon is in that episode. One thing I thought that was interesting about this episode is that there are some cool sci-fi concepts that relate to things that. So, how many years has it been since Star Trek? This episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation aired? More than 20, right? We're at the 25th. Let's see here.
I think so.
Let's see. What was the air date? This episode aired on April 9th, 1988. So we're almost so from 88 to 2008 would have been 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we're almost at 20 years.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't make sense. Oh, wait, sorry, we skipped the 90s. So it's almost 30 years ago.
Fuck.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
It's been 30 years.
It's been 30 years. Almost 30 years. We're getting close to the 30. Yeah. So 2016, 2 more years, and this will be a 30-year-old episode. But interesting concepts come up in this episode. So one is artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Okay. Drones.
Drones.
Absolutely.
Drones.
Those are drones.
Not to get political.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I think this episode is political. It's called The Arsenal of Freedom.
It is, absolutely.
And we were stockpiling what during this time?
Nuclear weapons.
Yeah. And then we were calling it like an arsenal to defend ourselves and to keep freedom. Yeah.
That's correct.
Iran-Contra had just happened around this time.
Mm-hmm.
Relatively. The weapons trade, weapons sales. I mean, these are all relevant things that were going on 30 years ago. And now this episode is actually quite relevant today because we're seeing that, like, we're seeing terrible weapons that getting into the hands of people that have nothing to do with hunting or self-defense. These are weapons intended to do incredible amounts of damage, and they're available. Yeah, they're available to people outside of a military or peacekeeping application, and they're being handled by people that don't respect this kind of destruction that this firepower is capable of. And I think that that's very relevant. I mean, just recently in the news, everyone knows what happened in Orlando, Florida. But before that, that's not the only thing. I read a statistic that there's been more mass shooting deaths in the United States now since the 50s or the 40s than there have been since deaths in World War II or some maddening statistic like that. So
it's not a statistic, yeah.
Soldier deaths, not total deaths, but like, just like those kinds of things. So it's a really sad thing. And I think that, like, to the Enterprise crew, this is something like they discuss and they think of as like very backwards and, barbaric and foreign to them because, by the time when Star Trek takes place in their future, I think, certainly a Galaxy class starship has defensive capabilities, but they're not going out trying to conquer. They're just explorers, and they just need to defend themselves against situations like this where, this kind of thing is left behind. And you can see the system that was created in Arsenal of Freedom. You can see, like, if our civilization continues on this sort of like weapons obsessed path, you could see something like this being a reality for humans, and it's really sad and scary to think about, in my opinion.
Very well said. Yeah, the comparisons to drones is very, very apt, and I think one of the aspects of warfare that this episode illustrates very well is the distancing of combat from those who initiate the wars. It's very easy to send a drone over somewhere, and the only people that die are on the other end. Whether they be the targets or the civilian collateral damage. As they say. But none of the people who are initiating this lose any lives. So it's like this thing of you're kind of losing the sense of, well, what is it to go over and make war? You're turning it into a video game. And when you look at this episode, you see that these people turned over the war to this little drone-like thing, and it just wiped them all out.
It actually worked against them, and it wiped out the whole planet. It's true.
So I mean, it's scary. So yeah, there's a very scary undercurrent.
I mean, we even see echoes of Terminator here. I mean, Terminator's kind of like this. It's like handing over your defensive capabilities and your warring to machines, because I think that is coming. I feel like, as we make advances in robotics, I feel like at some point our leaders will decide, well, human lives are no longer worth territorial disputes, so let's send in a bunch of robots, and so it'll be huge wars being fought between robots and, disputes being handled by robots. And what happens when those robots, who are going to need to have artificial intelligence to be able to be superior in their combat abilities, what happens when they obtain some kind of sentience and then they rebel against their human masters? I mean, there's a lot of interesting sort of thoughts that are evoked from this episode's concept of the Arsenal of Freedom, as the title so perfectly states.
Yeah, no, that's why I really love this episode. I think it's one of those episodes that makes you think. It's an episode that works on a character level. I think all the characters relate to each other really well. There's lots of neat character interactions between Data when he jumps down and Picard and Crusher, and certainly Geordi and what are you
I'm laughing because there's someone you're forgetting.
Yes, there. I'm saving that for the negative part of my review.
Okay.
Geordi and the rest of the crew aboard there, the Merry ship Enterprise there.
Oh, I like that. By the way, you just reminded me. I really like that Shirley Temple reference when Riker is talking to Captain Rice, or rather, I should say, fake.
Oh, the good ship Lollipop.
He says, "What's your ship called?" And he's like, "It's called the Lollipop. It's a good ship, right?" And so I just thought that was really cool.
I forgot. That's right.
See, nice
wit to the script.
Yeah, they're usually Star Trek does a good job at that.
And let me just point out, Crusher, why she would have been a great captain on our Pasteur television show. Crusher has this wonderful knack of just cutting through the crap. And Picard and Data.
One might say she crushers the bullshit.
She does. Oh, excuse me.
Gesundheit.
Thank you.
Hold on, I'm going to scan for anomalies in your area.
And Crusher just, tells Data and Picard, can't you just shut the damn thing off?
Oh, yeah, she kind of prompts that idea.
And they'll kind of look at each other like, oh.
Yeah, well, she's like, guys, I'm about to lose consciousness here. I don't have time for this. It's true.
Right. So it's kind of like, yeah. I mean, when she has that. What I like about Crusher is that that impatient, cut the bullshit attitude she has. You know, in the First Contact, when she calls up the what's his name, the hologram doctor from Voyager, and the doctor's like, well, "What do I do?" It's like, "Well, I don't know. Do a dance. I don't know. Just keep them busy. We're escaping. Don't ask me these stupid questions."
Yeah, that's right.
I love her impatience. I love that about her. Gates McFadden is just, I can't speak. She's just a brilliant actress. I love her. When she's, she's kind of teetering on losing consciousness. I thought all that was great. Great work. I guess I should stop avoiding the elephant in the room. Boy.
Counselor Troy gives Geordi some advice here in this interesting scene.
Okay, let me be diplomatic. What did you think about that? About Troy pointing out the obvious once again? I thought, like, what did she? What was?
I thought there was this weird tension that was building between Geordi and specifically the chief engineer, and there were several scenes where you see Troy kind of wide-eyed reacting to Geordi's decisions and how he's treating people and the way he's going about things. And I think that when you think of how Picard commands the ship and how Geordi commands the ship, it's very different because Geordi's very rough around the edges and kind of unsure of himself. And you can see in one point he does look like he's going to crack from the pressure. He's kind of nervous. I could have sworn there was a Dutch tilt in the shot. It was like, whoa! It was like there's like this confusion happening.
The ship was under attack.
It's true. So I think that Counselor Troy comes in to kind of encourage him to encourage others on the crew. I mean, that's her whole message. She's like, don't forget that these people are relying on you and they draw their strength from your confidence. So show confidence in them, encourage them. I think Geordi is that way already, so I do agree with you that it may have seemed a little out of place for Troy to be advising him in this way, but I think at the same time it's good to be reminded, even if it's not, Counselor Troy doesn't always have to give criticism. She could also just give reminders, and so I think that's how I read the scene. And I do have to admit that, it did seem like Counselor Troy was just kind of put into that scene to point out the obvious, as you say, but I don't mind that. I think it's great. I think she's, she does prove to me her worth later, but I do have to say, and I have to admit that in this first season, there are a lot of times where it's a little trying because you're like, well, what is the point of a counselor on a ship? And it's a new role. We've never seen a counselor on a ship before. Dr. McCoy did all the bartender duties before, and Counselor Troy, she doesn't even give you a drink. He was the counselor on the old ship. So,
I mean, realistically speaking, I don't know why Counselor. I mean, not to look like I have something against Counselor Troy, but watching the episode, I was thinking, realistically speaking, why didn't she have a conversation with the engineer? I thought the engineer was way out of line.
Right.
I mean, if it had been Picard or even Riker on board the bridge, are you telling me this engineer would have said, I'm on my way to the bridge, and just show up and give Picard a Riker?
And he kept insisting that Geordi relinquish command of the ship to him too.
Right.
It was very disrespectful.
That was very brazen.
Yeah.
And I don't see how I don't see why Troy didn't,
Well, she tells Geordi that he's doing great I think she praises him for the way he handles that situation. But I don't think she had much else to contribute beyond stating the obvious in that situation. You know, it was like, but it was a good way for us to see kind of distill the kind of events that had just been occurring, and to see that Geordi is in fact capable of command. I don't know where they were going with this, because Geordi ends up being chief engineer later on. I think by season 2, it's just where he is. He's the chief engineer. He even switches to a yellow shirt. I thought LeVar Burton's acting was great in this episode. I thought he really did seem, nervous when he needed to seem nervous. I thought he was wonderfully, you could see that he was trying his best to keep the ship in command, command the ship in much the same way Captain Picard would. And even when he goes into his ready room, I thought that was an interesting touch, whether it was done in the writing or through the director, where he goes over into the, and looks out into out through the ready room window, and then he looks at the chair, Captain Picard's chair, and chooses not to sit in it. He instead goes around the desk and turns the computer console over to himself and starts looking at it that way. And I thought that was very respectful, and a nice touch, a character moment through that.
That was great that you pointed that out. That's absolutely true. I really liked LeVar Burton's performance throughout this whole episode, and again, I think I said in the our last conversation, season 1 of Next Generation, not my favorite, but certainly one of the most interesting, because you see all of the what ifs that could have been possible on this show. And one of them is the what if of Geordi if he had not been moved to engineering. What if it seems to me like Geordi, because this is like the 3rd time they've called on Geordi to be in command to stay in command of the bridge, and I don't think we saw that again as he was engineering.
Yeah, and admittedly, I think Geordi does find his place among the crew in engineering, because at the moment he's just the helmsman. He's like an amalgamation between Sulu and Chekhov, and again, I don't think they really figured out what he is yet. And I think they did figure it out when he becomes the chief engineer. I think that's his natural and most fitting role on the Enterprise, and that's certainly what we remember. He goes down as one of the greats. It's Scotty, Geordi. Is it B'Elanna, right? She's the chief engineer of the Voyager. We have Chief O'Brien, and we have Trip. Yeah. See, we can name all the engineers.
I think it would have been interesting to see Geordi on a command track. I see the potential from this episode. I think it would have been interesting.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're wearing the red uniform, that's something. I guess it's on your mind, right? Because I mean,
I'm not sure that Star Trek is super clear on that, because I think Data wears a yellow uniform throughout his entire career, but he seems to be very prime candidate for command, and it suggests
he's not seeking it actively.
He's not actively seeking it.
He's like Spock. He is content with. I mean, Data is obviously 3rd in command in terms of rank.
In the original series, the yellow shirt was command.
Right.
The red shirt, I'm not sure. I've never been sure. And then there's science, which is the blue shirt, and that's still the case.
Well,
you still have the engineering. So now it's switched, but it's not just engineering. I think a lot of people, security wore red shirts, and just so I think that maybe command is the red shirts and Star Trek. And I'm sure there's a resource for this. Maybe Memory Alpha has some resolution on this, so we'll look it up and talk about it maybe on the next episode. But I gather from what I've seen, red shirt tends to be in the command leadership role. Yellow uniform tend to be a variety of roles that are technical and engineering in nature. And then blue is more of science type stuff.
Do we ever get a green?
No, we don't get a green shirt. Well, now in the original series, Captain Kirk wore a green shirt at the trial of like his dress uniform was green.
Yeah, Kirk had like a green shirt. Yeah, that's true.
The battle bridge looked different in this episode from the last time we saw it.
It was a little bit bigger, right?
It looked a little bit bigger, and it kind of looked like the bridge of the Voyager.
If you say so. Allow me to point out details of this episode from the Star Trek Next Generation Companion by Larry Nemec. Apparently, this episode was conceived originally as a Picard Crusher love story. But Robert Lewin, who wrote the original story, recalls that Gene Roddenberry changed his mind and opted instead for this extremely ambitious action-adventure yarn. Apparently, the director is the one who suggested that Beverly Crusher, not Picard, be the one who was hurt in the fall, putting the captain in a fish-out-of-water situation and having to tend to her wound. And
I thought those scenes were really great, by the way. I like that Captain Picard was basically kind of putting Dr. Crusher back into like medical school mode, where he's like, your patient has many last, he's like referring to her as Dr. Crusher's patient, and he's like, tell me what to do. You could be a consulting physician here and tell me what to do to help this patient. So I like that approach. I do like that Captain Picard showed a lot of concern for her, but he did maintain his kind of steely cool. And if I'm not mistaken, this is not the first time the two of them are trapped in some kind of pit or cave together where one of them is injured. Do we later have an episode where Captain Picard is injured?
Trapped somewhere, yeah.
And is that the episode where we finally get a resolution to their love story? Is that it? Is that the one?
I have a vague memory of that, and I have a vague memory of not liking the episode.
As a matter of fact, I think it's so funny because the lieutenant or whatever she is that Captain Picard has a romance with, where he plays the Reskin flute and she plays the piano, resembles Dr. Crusher to me a lot. Like, she has a similar Dr. Crusher vibe going on.
Really? I don't remember that. I don't recall the episode enough to.
You don't remember where she's playing the piano with him, and like it's way later in the season, and I can't wait till we get to.
We'll see.
I can't wait till we get to the episode with the Resican flute too.
I think I've gone on record. Well, not on the show, but in our conversations. Picard and Crusher, one of the big unresolved. For me, it was just a storyline that should have evolved, and I think there should have been a relationship between the two. I think it was clearly established from the first episode that there was meant to be some kind of evolving relationship between the two beyond just captain and chief medical officer, and the show did not take advantage of it, and I think it was to the detriment of both characters. I would have loved to have seen, rather than Worf and Troy, or what other romances did we see? Geordi and his dalliances with holograms and whatever. I think a Crusher-Picard relationship would have been a really, really interesting element to the show. and it would have effectively meant that I think, especially with Wesley, who is not in this episode, by the way. Strangely enough, I don't know where he was. He would have saved the ship.
He's studying for his. He's got to make sure that he makes it into Starfleet Academy the second time around. He can't fail twice, so he's studying harder. I disagree on that point. I think the show does deliver what I think is the appropriate story between Crusher and Picard. I think that what finally happens between them is pretty vague, and I think it's implied that they will deepen their relationship as time goes on. But the movies kind of undo all that, and the emphasis is on Riker and Troy instead. But but at the end of Next Generation, the series, there is the idea that Picard and Crusher will finally have their romance. Now, whether they make it work or not, that's left up to the imagination. But I do think that we do get a nice thing. It's kind of tough because on another show where there was Commander Adama and Rosalind on the reboot series of Battlestar Galactica, I hated it. I hated when they finally got together, although I loved it when I saw the ending. But I was just like, this is just getting away of Adama's command. And I think that there is a degree, we've talked about this with Kirk, where Kirk is definitely married to the Enterprise. I think we're starting to see here that Picard also is very devoted to the Enterprise, and so
not like Kirk. No, I disagree 100%.
You just disagree because Kirk didn't have a Crusher, so he didn't have the complication of
Kirk could never have a Crusher because he was seriously in love with the Enterprise.
Well, that's probably true.
Picard, I think Picard would leave the Enterprise not for anything, but there are situations where he is tempted away. And Kirk is never tempted away from the Enterprise.
That's okay. Yeah. I'll give you that. That's very true.
Picard, as we just said in the last episode, Picard is somebody who you were saying that he's the type of captain who watches human. He's very observant, and he watches human behavior. Why? Because that's the anthropologist in him. That's the anthropology / archaeology / historian side of him. My God, in the last episode, we see that he's growing grapes. He's gone back to the family estate or whatever to grow grapes, make wine. That's not something Kirk would ever do. Let's face it.
I don't know. Kirk kind of, in the Nexus, you see kind of what Kirk's retirement would be like, and
and Kirk himself realized it was false, and he said, "No, I'm leaving Antonia, and I'm going to save the this captain of the Enterprise that I've only met for 5 seconds." Yeah.
I know, and unfortunately, the Enterprise does not last. What's a shame is that he didn't even get to see the Enterprise. Kirk. Yeah. I think it would have been nice if Kirk saw the Enterprise. Although I think he would have liked the Enterprise E a lot better than the Enterprise D.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I think the Enterprise looks better without the saucer.
No, I hate that star drive section.
You do?
Yeah, I like it. I like this complete saucer.
No,
I like it with the saucer.
Too big, man.
No, it's a beautiful ship. The Enterprise D is a gorgeous ship. It's unlike anything.
Ugly ship.
It's unlike anything I've ever. Star Trek: The Next Generation brought a whole new kind of starship Enterprise, or just starship in general, into play.
It looked like something that maybe the Mon Calamari would have.
Yeah, you're right. There's a Mon Calamari aspect to the Enterprise D.
I don't like it. I've never liked the D.
I love it.
I've never, and it's true. No other ship has gone as big with its saucer as that ship. So that should tell you something.
Well, the saucer went from this shape to that shape.
Yeah, the arrow shape. Yeah, I like that.
that more of an arrow shape, which is more like Voyager, I guess.
Yeah, I like that.
I like the traditional circular saucer myself. I think the NCC 1701A or the refit 1701 are the supreme design of the Enterprise, and the only reason I think the reboot Enterprise 1701 is kind of interesting, or is because it has a circular saucer section.
That's true.
It is circular, although the rest of it's radically different. It's a weird looking ship.
It is a weird looking Hobbit ship. Well, on that note, I think I can't think of anything else.
No, I think so. So you stand by your solid 3 on this episode?
This is a solid 3.
Solid
what do you
3.
Give this?
2.5.
You sure you don't want to move it up?
I have to say that after the discussion, I do feel that it wouldn't be out of line to give the episode 3 stars. So I'll agree with you. I'll say let's
there we go.
A nice 3 star. A nice 3 stars. So change.
Well done. Thank you.
We don't have a database girl on Starfleet Boy like we do on Drunk Space Nine.
Can't afford. No.
We can't afford it. So audience
got paid database girl.
What's that?
How does Goldie Scott pay database girl?
I don't know. The Cardassians are a little different. I don't know. But Starfleet Boy, we encourage our audience to participate in any way you like. And if someone wants to keep track of our ratings, that would be an interesting thing to find out at the end of the season what we thought of each episode. We could do a recap. Maybe we're gonna have to do it ourselves.
I'm willing to give community service hours. That's something we do at the high schools. We give kids community service hours. I'll give community service hours to anyone who
if you do assign a student to watch the show and collect data on things like ratings and stuff like that for our finale of the season, I'll happily sign a document saying that they earn their community service hours. But also please remind them to subscribe and to the show. And for those of you out there who are subscribed, feel free to interact with us any way you like. We're Starfleet Boy on all the things: Instagram and Twitter and Tumblr and Facebook.
What's our next episode?
The next episode is something that I've forgotten already, but I'll tell you what it is. It is Symbiosis. Do you remember that one?
No, I don't.
It is the episode with Merrick Buttrick. Merrick Buttrick is Kirk's son is in the episode, and sadly, this is the last time we see this actor in Star Trek. But we'll go into or anywhere else. Yeah, I don't know. He may have made a few movies before he passed, but yeah.
Wow, the late great
Merrick Buttrick.
Merrick Buttrick.
Yep.
Not a great last name, but I don't remember that episode other than the fact that he's in it. You know, both him and Saavik were on Next Generation.
Wait, when was Saavik on Next Generation?
Saavik.
You mean the second Saavik, or because Kirstie Alley was not? That's right.
No, it's a shame we never had Kirstie Alley on.
I know, Kirstie Alley. Thank you for doing Star Trek, Kirstie Alley, for just being on Star Trek once.
How many actors from Cheers have been on
Star Trek?
Frasier?
Well, Frasier. We've had Kirstie Alley. Ted Danson has never been on Star Trek. He should.
Why not?
I know he should consider it. Has Rhea Perlman ever been on Star Trek?
I don't think so. I wonder.
I'm gonna have to do some. We'll do some research for our next episode.
The cast of Cheers.
I do remember. This is really funny. Do you remember Mad Magazine?
Of course, yeah.
There was a Star Trek parody they did with Cheers, and the bar had engines. on
Oh, really?
nacelles. It had nacelles on it, and I just vaguely remember this. I'm gonna have to look it up now.
Wow.
Yeah, Mad magazine, or it was either Mad or Cracked. I couldn't remember which one. Do you remember
Oh,
those publications?
yeah, of course. Both shows are Paramount, Cheers and Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There could easily have been a Cheers Star Trek
Crossover.
crossover. What would that have been
Wouldn't
like?
Well, I think it would have been fun if Patrick Stewart sat at the bar at Cheers. I mean, that would have been a neat little thing. Incidentally, speaking of Cheers, Cheers had a spin-off show called Frasier, which takes place in beautiful Seattle, and that's where Starfleet Boy is headquartered.
That's right.
We're headquartered here in Seattle.
That's
So,
right.
Cheers to
Were any of the actors on Frasier on Star Trek?
I think only Kelsey Grammer.
And he's like a big
so.
Star Trek fan.
Is he? I'm not surprised.
Okay.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap up this fine episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where we had a discussion about the Arsenal of Freedom. And I just want to say again, it's pretty obvious. We have enough history backing up this claim that just stockpiling weapons and advancing weapons is not the solution to world peace. And if you talk to any individual on the street, 99 out of 100 people, I guarantee you, want to live in a peaceful world and probably would be happy to give up the liberty of owning an automatic assault rifle and just being satisfied with the right to bear arms, meaning a handgun or a shotgun for hunting. I'm not sure about that, but I think that's my opinion.
Make love, not war.
Make love, not war. Put roses in those gun barrels. Come on. Absolutely. Anyways, live long and prosper. Peace in our time.
There we
Peace
go.
in our time.
Peace in our time.